Greetings all. In today's video we're going to check out two harbors on Catalina Island. This is over on the west end of Catalina Island. You may have seen my Avalon video, which is on the east side of Catalina Island. And we're going to explore Isthmus Cove, the town of Two Harbors, the USC Dornsife Facility with the Hyperbaric Chamber, and we're going to take a little cruise over to Emerald Bay. And this should give you a good rundown on things to do around Two Harbors and the neat little facilities over on the west end of the island. So Catalina Island, situated about 20 miles off the California coast. We're going to go to the west end of the island at the Isthmus of Catalina, and we'll be mooring at what we call Isthmus Cove. We'll also go check out the USC Hyperbaric Chamber and then make our way over to Emerald Bay. And of course, the approach to Two Harbors in that area is marked by Bird Rock, a big white rock, and also the smaller rock called Ship Rock. Well, once you get into the Two Harbors complex, there are a number of coves there that you could moor at. Of course, there's Isthmus Cove, which is up towards the city of Two Harbors, and there's also 4th of July Cove and Cherry Cove. All you have to do is hail the Harbor Patrol on Channel 9, and they can assign you a mooring depending on the length of and type of your boat. And they'll get you all set up. Moorings on the west end of Catalina are very similar to other places on Catalina Island in that they're a two-ended mooring. And what you do is you bow into the pin, pick up the pin, run the loop around it, grab the sand line, and run it back down to your stern cleat. Bow and stern end both moored on to the mooring lines. The Harbor Patrols are really helpful. If you're new at it, just let them know, and they'll help you accommodate getting to some of the moorings. And yeah, it can be really tight on some real popular weekends. Well, my first order of business once getting to shore was completing Operation Envy, which was a success. Yeah, I had to make a delivery of apples to one of the guys working on the west end here. So yeah, and getting on the gangway and moving into town. One thing you have to remember is you're starting to get on island time here. It's unlike Avalon, which has a little bit more hustle and bustle and things to do. Here you just want to kind of chillax a little bit. Also, we had to get Admiral Sadie to do her business, and she got that all done. So then I was just kind of off, and I'll kind of explore the town a little bit here. The amenities here on the west end are definitely a lot fewer selection than you have, say, over in Avalon, but that's the cool vibe about this area. There's a small cafe, there's a small general store, there's actually a marine chandlery there that you could get some parts, which we actually had to do, and there's a campground there. The accommodations are somewhat limited if you're not staying on a boat, but yeah, there's a campground there, and there's a bed and breakfast, and there's a small hotel there. So there's something for a little bit of everybody here. Well, our next order of business was to quench our thirst from the long passage over, and we were accommodated by our bartender Isaac, who helped us out in that. Getting to the west end here, we took boats. You can also take the Catalina Express and Catalina Flyer boats out of Long Beach and Two Harbors to get here. You can also go over to Avalon and then travel overland over to Two Harbors. So this kind of extends this Catalina adventure area. And again, accommodations are somewhat limited, so you want to make sure you make reservations well ahead of time. And one of the neat aspects about the West End, for those who are a little bit more rugged in their lifestyle, is they do have a campground, and it's really kind of nice there. And if you're into backpacking and traveling that way, you can actually do the Trans-Catalina Trail. Now, I will say, kind of letting the cat out of the bag here, is there's some really neat campgrounds on the west end here, and I'll talk a little bit about that more when I get into talking about Emerald Bay and that kind of West End area. And I will drop a name. Parsons Landing is actually a really neat campground as a destination, and it's about 8 miles away from here. So it makes a good kind of a day trip to go out there and spend overnight and then come back the next day, or actually spend a couple of days there. It's really neat and very remote. Well, dining on the West End here is relatively simple, I guess. We have the West End Cafe for breakfast and lunch, even light dinners and such. If you want to upscale it, you could go to the Harbor Sands and eat outside. You could also kind of get over there a little bit. I won't say anything. There's also a general store. The general store is fairly well accommodated with things that you may need for immediate services and gifts for other folks. We had to hit the Marine Channel early, and that's even there. So there's about 350 or so people that live on the West End, and most of them are associated with the visitor services and marine and rescue business here. So it's a quaint little town here. So yeah, one thing we have to remember here on the West End is that we're on West End time and just trying to chillax and groove on the scene and check everything out. It's really interesting. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of cruise through the town itself, and you never know what you might see or who you might run into. So one of the neat kind of aspects of Catalina, of course, is it's been occupied for about 10,000 years and such. More recently, two harbors really kind of came for fruition around the Civil War period, and we actually see some historic remains from that era up to the present and such. Also, one of the neat things to do is to walk over the isthmus over to Cat Harbor. It's about a half mile to a mile journey. Just check out the other side. So yeah, you could do a simple traverse of Catalina Island, and on that way up there you cross some of the old Army barracks, which is now home to the Isthmus Yacht Club. And if you ever have an invite to attend a party there, definitely take it and make sure you bring your best Hawaiian shirts. So yeah, definitely a fun time to be had, and kind of check out the scene here. Well, now we're taking a short dinghy ride across the bay up to the USC facility, the Dornsife Facility, and the Wrigley Marine Institute. There's also a marine preserve off the waters there. We're going up there to check out the Hyperbaric Chamber. Now, we have a dockmate, Kurt, and he volunteers there and is going to give us a tour. And Kurt has an interesting history. He spent 10 years here at the West End working for the LA County Lifeguards. He's the original Baywatch, and he has a lot of interesting stories, and he's been volunteering some time up there because he's had a lot of experience using the Hyperbaric Chamber. And what we see is the Hyperbaric Chamber is mainly used for decompression sick for the diving community up there. It's a neat little facility that's little known of for that area. So we were fortunate enough to get a tour with him. So there's a lot more to the facility than just the hyperbaric chamber. I mean, it is part of the general overall campus. One use is this helipad here, and what we see is during major rescues and such, this is where they tend to fly them in and out of. There's a small helipad facility in two harbors, but if you need a bigger helicopter and such, this is definitely a good facility for that. Also, being part of the USC campus, there's a lot of research and student activities that go on here. It can also be leased out or rented out to private individuals and researcher groups who want to use the facility. So it provides a really neat service for the whole overall general community. We didn't have a chance to tour the whole facilities, but just from the outside it looked very interesting, and also seeing some of the student activities that were occurring in the little cove right there. Now, the hyperbaric chamber that we did get to tour, when you first see it, it's large. It's bigger than most decompression chambers, and it was specially built in the 1960s by the Lockheed Martin Company, mainly in association with the SR-71 project and ideas of altitude sickness and some of the unknowns associated with that. Subsequently, they donated it with the help of another bunch of other companies to the USC facility to augment diver safety. And what's really neat about this chamber is, first, it's large and it can actually accommodate a couple of people. It also has an airlock so that attending physicians or EMTs can actually go in and out of the chamber itself. Now, when we see the chamber, yeah, it's big and stuff, but you have to realize that behind the scenes, there's a lot of air tanks, and the air tanks there to actually pressurize the chamber. Chamber can simulate depths up to 165 meters, so some pretty good depth associated with that. And why they use it is for a condition that's commonly known as the bends, decompression sickness associated with divers, that as you go into a deep dive, the water pressure there starts to build up pressure in your blood veins and such, and when you start to ascend, the hydrogen gas starts to actually come out of solution, boil off, so to speak. Well, what this does is, if you ascend too quickly, it simulates those depths, and in a controlled environment, you can then basically squeeze that back, those bubbles, and then slowly decompress them so they diffuse into the bloodstream, and you tend not to get the bends. So it's a really neat facilities, and some of the statistics that Kurt told us about with diving accidents and diving deaths associated with the bends have been greatly reduced. Now, operation of the hyperbaric chamber is volunteer, and so they do have one permanent staff, but then they have a number of volunteers that actually help out with that. And if you're interested in maybe as a project to volunteer with them, please check out their website. I think it's a good venue if you're retired or semi-retired and you have a boat. You can actually moor on the facility there at the USC facility, which is a nice little cove, and you're right in the marine preserve, which you typically can't anchor in. And subsequently, you could explore the diving things and help out with the hyperbaric chamber, not only teaching classes, but also in its operations in case an emergency arises. Well, I want to give a shout out to Kurt for showing us the hyperbaric facility. That was really neat, and it's really interesting, and a really neat resource to know that actually exists on the west end of the island there. So shout out to you, Kurt. Thanks. Well, our next order of business took us up to Emerald Cove or Emerald Bay, and it's known for some of the most pristine scenic waters in all of Catalina. So it's only about 4 miles or so from Two Harbor, so a short little jaunt up there. The approach is marked by some rocks, and there's a Boy Scout facility there, as well as home to the Corsair Yacht Club Beach. So we just kind of hung out there for a couple hours, but I thought I'd show you it here. If you're interested in backpacking, this is getting closer to the very west end of the island and such. And even though you can't backpack down into Emerald Cove, there's a couple coves over. One's called Parsons Landing, and I highly recommend it if you're into backpacking to either go from Two Harbors to Parsons Landing, or if you're doing the whole Trans-Catalina Trail. And even though you could do it as a day hike, it's 16 miles round trip. I really recommend if you can go there, stay overnight, and then backpack, spend a night or two there, and then backpack to Two Harbors, and then you could take the Catalina Express back. So there's a Pete secret there, a Captain Action secret right there. So all fun and games, and even though we have the Corsair Yacht Club there, a bunch of Corsairs came after us, but they paddled on by, and then we were prone to some dinghy races, so it's fun watching the scouts enjoying the water there. Well, with our little stay at Emerald Bay, we decided to head back and course, as we start to head back, I'd like to reflect and thank a bunch of people for making this all possible. I'd like to thank Captain Bob and Admiral Sadie for allowing me to hand on their boat. Also, Captain Andrew, showing him the ropes of the west end of the island. Thanks for letting me hand on your boat. I'd also like to thank Kurt for showing us the Hyperbaric Chamber and being a great dockmate. A couple other dockmates that showed up on Catalina, Ben and Trin. Always fun to have you around there. So, yeah, we kind of had a little F-Dock meetup over at Catalina during one of the trips over there. So I hope you enjoyed the adventure. West End is a neat place if that's kind of your style, and I highly recommend it. Check out some more videos on this and such. So thanks for watching, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.